Hi, I'm Bonnie from Academic Technology, and today we're talking about recording on Zoom. And there are three parts of recording on Zoom: setting your settings in advance, how to record in an actual meeting and who can record in an actual meeting, and then how do you share that recording later. Those are the three general areas we're going to talk about today. We're a small group. Feel free to unmute yourself, ask questions in the moment. Your experience and what you need it for is more important than any agenda that I have for getting through all of those topics, because all of your questions will require answers in all of those topic areas. So don't feel like you have to wait until the end or do a one-on-one, because any question that you have to ask, I'm sure will be useful for other people. And we will go back to questions that you guys have posed earlier. The most important part of recording on Zoom is setting your recording settings in advance. And you do that in the Zoom web app under settings and recording, okay? The recording settings that are there by default are pretty good for most people, but you want to know what you're recording. So for example, at this moment, I could be recording my shared screen. I could be recording my active speaker, which would be my head right now. I could be recording the gallery view, which is everybody's videos and faces. Or I could be recording the active speaker and the shared screen, or the gallery view and the shared screen. But you don't get to choose that in the moment. You have to set it up in advance. So for local recording, you don't get to choose any of those options. I think it generally picks the shared screen and the speaker view, and you hit record and it records it to your computer, which makes it a little hard to share, because then you have to put it on a sharing platform like YouTube or Vimeo or Google Drive in order for anyone else to see it. But it's great if it's just a recording for your purposes to go back through and look at, so you can. Cloud recording, that's where you get all the permissions and choices. You'll see that mine is set up to record the active speaker and the shared screen, and not the gallery view with the shared screen. But I am also recording just the shared screen by itself. Okay, so I have options when I finish this recording. I can either share the active speaker with the shared screen or just the shared screen. In tutorial videos, it's pretty important that the screen is really big and you can see in detail what the person is doing on the screen. So I don't like my little speaker view up in the upper right corner, because it shrinks down the rest of the information. But if someone wanted to know who was talking and, you know, keep it in context, they would want to see the speaker view as well. So I record both. I also make sure to save the chat messages that go with each meeting that I record. I add a timestamp, totally unnecessary. I just leave it there. To record that speaker view up in the corner, you have to have this record thumbnails turned on. If you record speaker view and shared screen and you don't have the thumbnail turned on, you won't have that little picture in the upper right to do it. And I always record the audio transcript. There's no reason not to, because it's a separate file and you don't have to use it if you don't need it. But if you ever needed to give someone a transcript of a recording or to add it to YouTube as closed captions, the Zoom audio transcript is much better at closed captioning than YouTube is or than Vimeo is. It has a much better matchup of what words are said and what actually gets typed out in the transcript. So
if you, Bonnie, if you include the chat in the recording, does that mean that people's names are also recorded? So you have to have permission for their names to be visible?
So if you record the chat, their names are recorded in a separate side-by-side chat. So if you share the cloud video that's hosted on Zoom, yes, people will see whatever name people have put on their person in Zoom, but they can either not participate in the chat, or you can choose not to record the chat if that's an issue.
But I don't, do I have to get permission of everybody whose name is in the chat in order to use it online?
It depends who you're sharing it with, but I would say yes. I mean, that's directory information. For students, 100% yes, they are covered by FERPA.
Right. They aren't necessarily students, although some of them could be. There would be people who paid $25 to participate in the webinar.
Right. So I think it would be good for you to ask legal whether those people are considered students of Antioch or not, and whether they're covered by FERPA.
Uh-huh.
If you if you press the record button, and there is a recording disclaimer button that pops up when you press record. You guys should have got it. It said,
Yeah,
by staying in this meeting, you are agreeing to be recorded.
Yep.
So when they stay in the meeting, they have been told that they are being recorded. But if they, for example, at some point found out they were in that recording and it was shared publicly with the whole world and didn't want to be in there, you might have to go in and edit the video and edit them out.
They aren't, we didn't have that problem with anybody's face. Or the one we did, all of the, there were breakouts at the end, and then one person from each group came back and shared, and we edited those out. I was concerned about, I mean, I thought that I saw the chat at one point and was wondering if that was going to show. But when I looked at it again, it did not show. So I don't know if that's a setting that you can just turn off the chat. Or was that just how I was looking at it at the time?
You can uncheck the chat up here, but I'm recording and I'm sharing my screen. And if I drag my window over into my shared screen area, you would see what I'm seeing in chat.
Right.
So I could accidentally share people's names in chat. I think a good process is to tell people before you hit the record button, we're going to be recorded today. If you don't want your last name recorded, please rename yourself, or in the chat. We recommend you can do that anyways. So I could just say Bonnie P and then AUNE if I wanted to. But that gives people a way to both participate and be recorded without feeling that they're giving away more of themselves than they want to.
Right.
I think that's actually more important than the transactional how to record and how to share, is how to make people comfortable being recorded in Zoom. So you need to be clear about what you're recording. You need to give them options for de-identifying themselves as much as possible, like perhaps stopping their video and removing their profile picture if they want to, changing their name. And then you need to be really clear about where it's going to be shared or for what purpose it will be shared. I put my training videos on YouTube as public. Nobody comes to my YouTube site. I'm not generating marketing. I'm not getting paid to put these up. It's just so that when adjuncts aren't logged in at Antioch, they don't have to sign in to AU Direct in order to get to the link in Sakai, in order to click the video title. They can just go to YouTube and search for AUAT academic technology and search all the videos that I've created. So it's a convenience factor for the people I'm really intending to share with. But in the case of a couple days ago, I recorded Greg Whiteman talking about Flipgrid, and he had student faces and videos in his Flipgrid account that he showed during the training that I recorded. So now we need to get release forms from those students because their name, likeness, voice, and photo or video are shared. And if I shared those publicly, I'd be violating FERPA if I didn't get their permission first. So it's just it's a professional thing to do to get people's permission before you share their name or face or video. Or if you've warned them in the video ahead of time. So sometimes what I will do is right after I hit record, I will say something like, we're recording this video and participants have been advised that they can change their name or remove their profile photo if they don't want to be shown in the video. We'll be sharing this on YouTube so that all participants and other people who couldn't attend could come watch the video at a later date. If you're clear about that in the video, then you know that you've set expectations that your participants will be okay with after the fact. Does that help you like decide what kind of process to do?
Yeah, and I think that we had everybody turn off their cameras and their audio before we turned on the recording.
Now you'll see Melissa here, hasn't set up a profile picture, or she's not logged in. And so she only has the generic Google icon with an M. But because my profile is set up and that's my profile picture, even when I turn off my video, that's what it shows. So legally, in terms of FERPA, that is a photo of me that I would, if I were a student, would need a release form for you to share.
What about the hide the image in that little 3 dots thing at the top of your?
The hide the image is hide non-video participants.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do that in forgotten where that button is.
It's up in the 3 dots in your little picture square.
In your own little picture.
Yeah. It says
you can hide your self view.
Hide self view.
Yeah,
if
that's
people
new.
Do that.
That's new in Zoom, I believe 5.2. So a lot of people won't have that option. Now, how do I get that back?
So if I do that, I go away altogether, don't I?
Yep. And actually, I just went away altogether. And
So,
to be totally honest with you,
how do I bring myself back?
So I'm here, I promise.
I can see you, but you can't see me, can you?
Yes, so you're hiding it from yourself. You are not necessarily hiding
it from others.
Yeah.
I don't know how to bring myself back.
Right.
So there's show self view.
I don't know what I look like, but I'm still showing.
Okay, so then I turned off. So just turning off my video does not take myself away because I have a picture.
Because you have a profile picture. And then you'd have to log into the website, change your profile picture. You might have to leave the meeting and come back for your profile picture to share. I'm not sure. I think Peter.
If you're all doing it at the same time.
Yeah, if you're all doing it at the same time. So that speaks to giving people time to decide how they want to be recorded before you hit the record button. You know, so that might be something before you start the recording that you give some people the time to decide. Okay, everybody, this is how you change your name. This is how you stop your video. Don't just hide your self view, because if you do that, you're only hiding it from yourself. That sort of thing. All right, so the settings by default are pretty good, but make sure you know what you're recording. If I'm having a discussion group, I want to record the gallery view in addition, because what I really want to see is people's engagement and talking and conversation. But I might not publish that publicly anywhere, but I might want to have it. And if you change any of these, this little save button will come up and you have to hit save to save those changes. And you should get this button that says your settings have been updated. So down here at the bottom, these by default are all pretty good. The one I often check is require a passcode to access shared cloud recordings. So if you want to protect them a little bit more, after September 27th, you might have, a password might be required. And then this recording disclaimer, I really like the service it provides to the participants in your group. It's on by default, but if you've ever turned it off, don't forget to come in here and turn it on so that they get that little pop-up that says, by staying in this meeting, you are agreeing to be recorded. If you don't want to be recorded, you can leave. So it gives them the option to continue or leave on that message. And then when you're actually in the meeting, so now all your faces are showing. I have down here in more, or if my participants and chat are hidden, the little recording buttons pop up, and you'll see that I can, I have a pause and a stop button because we are currently recording, which you can see in the upper left corner of your Zoom and my Zoom. This is so you can't like record people without them knowing, or having a reminder that they're being recorded, which I also think is great for privacy and security. If I pause the recording, then it will pause the recording for now. And when I start it up again, it will continue with the same recording. If I stop the recording and then start the recording again, it'll produce two separate disconnected videos in your session. One for the first part that you recorded and then stopped, and then one for the second part that you recorded and stopped. So let's just say you're having your normal course lecture and discussion, and then you know you're going to be having a maybe personal or challenging conversation, or where people might reveal private things. You can pause for that conversation and let people know you're going to do that. Then you can restart the recording again after the discussion. And then essentially you'll have your lecture and your instructions and the information available in the recording, but you won't have recorded what some people might feel is sensitive information. If you do save that, just be clear with your students that you are recording everything, but it's only for them to, for that exact course section attendance list to do. You can't share it outside of the course section. Peg, if you're not in a course, that's where I think the FERPA question comes into play. If people are not enrolled as a student,
Right.
What are their privacy expectations of the university? What does the university expect us to do? And what does the world expect from us, or the legal system expect from us?
And those kinds of questions are coming up in the kind of the development of the continuing ed program. You know,
Yeah.
we
I
haven't
mean,
really gone there in terms of FERPA yet.
Yeah, continuing
We're
education.
still trying to figure out, you know, a glossary of terms.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure that the legal team has a definition. If you have an account in Colleague, an ID number, you are a student.
Oh yeah, and the program that we register with is part of Colleague, so everybody gets a Colleague ID number. So that's an interesting facet.
Yeah, I bet that they would be considered students in a legal sense.
Huh.
They're not employees, but they have what we call a student ID. But that'll be an interesting thing for you.
Yeah.
Okay. So in the recording, when we're not actively recording, this button's a little circle. And when you click it, you have two options if your settings were set the way mine showed you. You have record to your computer and record to the cloud. Recording to the computer records a single file to your computer only. And that's good if your internet connection is really bad, because it doesn't require that the video go over the internet that might be affected by a slow in your internet or a slow computer or something like that. But when it's on your computer, it's not shared with anybody. So recording to the computer is great for a recording that you might need or a student might need for themselves to review later, but not have to share with anybody. Or if you have a slow internet connection, because you could upload it to YouTube or Vimeo or Google Drive and share it with whoever you want that way later. If you record to the cloud, Zoom hosts that recording on their website for 240 days. They send you an email with the link to the recording and you can share it with people. So it's very easy. And you have access to all of those settings that I showed you so that you can choose exactly what you're recording and what you're not recording. So my recommendation is whenever possible, you should record to the cloud. and control your own recording if it's a class or a webinar, versus having individuals record it to their computer unless just one person needs a recording of it. Does that make sense?
So do you download the file to your computer after the fact so that you have it for when the 240 days runs out?
Yes. So if you want something, luckily our semesters, none of them is as long as 240 days. So if you record something during a semester, you will have it for the entirety of that semester on Zoom without even thinking about it. All of your cloud recordings are stored on the Zoom website when you log in under the recordings tab. They come in a list, and you'll see in different cases here I have 4 files and here I have 3 files. And when you look at that session, you'll see I have a video file of shared screen with speaker view. I have a video file of the shared screen alone. I have an audio transcript and a separate chat file. And when I share the Zoom link to the cloud sharing with you, you will see this, because I clicked on the shared screen with speaker view, you get this view. The audio transcripts goes down the right side, and the chat messages tab is available so that you can scroll down the chat, and it will be the chat that's available to everyone, I believe. It should not include private chats, but we should definitely test that before I say that 100%. If you did not have the chat messages box checked off when you recorded, this won't be here. If you didn't have the audio transcript button checked when you recorded, this won't be here. All right, so there's a lot of capability for you to choose what you want and what you don't. If you go back to the recording information, you can hover over any of these videos or these text files, and you can download them using the download button, or you could attach them to an email, which I haven't done before. I think it attaches the link to an email, but I'm not quite sure. So you have these for up to 240 days. My process, because I put them on YouTube, is to download the video and the transcript right away. I don't put the chat on YouTube. I upload them both to YouTube and link them together, and then I share them, and then I store the copies of the videos on my work computer. All right, so I know I have them forever. I'm now deciding that I don't really need those stored files from 8 months ago. I have a copy on YouTube. I'm probably not going to edit them. But if there was anything that I was keeping as a part of something that needed to be recorded for, let's just say, my job evaluation of I did this many items, I might want to keep those original videos. And you'll see if you look at my whole recordings page, it goes back and there's a column that tells you how long before it's going to auto delete. So how much longer I have before each of those files goes away. And you'll see I have 78 total recordings in the last 240 days. So other questions and thoughts about the actual recording in Zoom or how to share your recordings after the fact?
Yeah, Bonnie, if it's in Google Drive, we could share that with our class then,
Yes.
like in lessons or something.
Oh, in Sakai lessons, if you link to a video from Sakai, because Sakai is controlled by login, only your students would be able to see the link to that video. So that would be good. But if you put it on Google Drive and you share it with everybody in the world can search for it and find it. So you need to make sure that when you put it on Google Drive and you share it, that you're sharing it with the right people. Okay, there's at least a 2-step process. You move the video to Google Drive, you share it with only the people who should be able to view it, and then you put the link in Sakai.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
So we did 2 videos, and instead of using Google Drive, we put them on a web page for the Inside Outside Network, and they were password protected pages.
So that's essentially what Sakai does for faculty, is it password protects their course. Whatever
Okay,
they put in their course is only
that
available
was-
to the people in their
Using
course.
Sakai was one idea we had. And then I think Ken suggested we try Google Pages. And then we realized, well, we have this website. Why not use the Inside Outside website? So they basically do the same thing.
Yes, in the anywhere where you can password protect wherever you've shared the link, and or password protect the actual file itself, is what you should do. In the case of what Susan was saying, we've put the file in Google Drive, so it has to be protected there by sharing it with just the people who can see it. And we've put the link in Sakai, which automatically restricts it so only people in that course section can see it. However, you have librarians and program coordinators and program administrators who are admin or academic support listed in your course. So there are people outside of your course section that theoretically could click that link who would also need to keep it private. And if they needed to see it, then that would be okay. But that's a need to see versus you can't just share it with all of AUNE if you run an AUNE class, because all of those employees don't have like a need to know to see that. You're not sharing it for their purposes. You just haven't locked it down enough. I don't think the things we're doing are anything in many cases that people would be worried about sharing, but we do have to be careful we are legally responsible in our positions for not violating FERPA. So that's what I'm more concerned about. And then for people who aren't covered by FERPA, I'm concerned about my professional relationship with them. I don't want to surprise them by putting something out there I haven't told them that's going to be available. And that's why I would really rely on my supervisor to tell me what our process is in the department, what the department expects, and maybe if legal, if there's any question about, like for PEG, whether they're a student or not, whether they are covered by FERPA or not covered by FERPA, that would be something I definitely escalate up the ladder to find out before I share the videos publicly.
So if we want to, part of the reason we want to record these webinars is to be able to offer them again. So if we're charging somebody money for the actual live webinar, it feels like we shouldn't just make it available for free to anybody after the fact.
Right.
And so I guess part of what I'm not clear about is how to do that, how to provide through continuing ed already recorded things. And it's not, maybe not part of your purview. You know what I mean? You might not, it's not part of this issue. I realize that. But that's like, oh, is there a way to do it so we can charge people $25 who want to see it in the future because they couldn't come the day we actually did it?
That would require a web system that would protect the video unless you gave the person some sort of unlock key, which they would have to purchase from you. So, I would also argue in the case of many webinars, some of the added value that you get when you pay for it is that you have the ability to participate in the discussion and ask questions. And watching one after the fact doesn't have quite as much value.
I agree.
But you do get to hear what other people ask. So maybe you might charge a little less. Or I was recently on a conference, and it was a week-long conference on UDL, completely online. They had 2 kinds of sessions: synchronous sessions where you were online live with the presenter in Zoom in the moment, and recorded sessions that the presenters recorded them giving their presentation to no audience or a hidden audience. So you really just got to see the presentation and they answered some questions that came through via text. So there was no audience to protect in terms of,
So there is different software for that. Is that correct?
no, you can do it right in Zoom.
You
just-
can.
if you use a webinar room like what Harold
Yep.
has, the participants' faces are hidden and their voices are hidden. They can only type in chat. And if you don't record the chat, you don't share that chat when you share the video, then you would not violate anybody's permission to record. Your recording would only contain what the presenter says and what the presenter shows on their screen, and any hosts or co-hosts who had agreed to be presented.
Right.
And they could have an actual audience in that webinar account. You can fake that in Zoom, but you manually have to turn off each participant's audio and manually have to turn off each participant's video. And if you do that, some of them still have that profile picture problem.
Right.
In the webinar room, which Harold schedules and has, and you can use anytime, it automatically hides anybody labeled as a participant. Only people labeled as presenter are shown at all.
So you can use the webinar function through Herald, even if you aren't like multitudes of people. I was just thinking that you only did it when you had 500 people. It's a maximum of 500 people. But if you have 100, you can use webinars instead of meetings.
Yes, and it protects the participants from being shared in the video. So you can more easily record something that you could share later.
Okay.
You have to work with Harold to make sure the recording settings are set the way you want for the webinar room in advance, because he can't change those in the moment.
Right. Okay.
You have to, and that's true with these recording settings. I just changed my recording settings and this meeting has been open. Those recording settings won't take effect until I end this meeting and reopen it. Okay. So don't open your meeting and then go set your recording settings. Check your recording settings, then open the meeting so that you know the meeting will have the recording settings that you just set and double checked before. An important recording. The classroom recording, I just leave them all the same all the time. So while I'm here, why don't I show you where you can find, this may not be the logical place, but I think it's a good place. In Zoom, before you log in, here is where you have our audio video recording acceptable use guidelines, which are the rules that the university provides us for what we can record, how to record it, when we need permission. What you need verbal permission to record, or let's just say by clicking having that pop-up button that comes when you hit record, that substitutes for verbal permission to record. But you might need written permission to share it. So that's when you have to think about that, okay? And this is, it's only 2 or 3 pages. It's not legalese. It's very approachable. You also have the release form in this list right here. And this is the one that I just modified for use for the video I just did. It's an authorization for use, image, voice, performance. I leave this thing in here, and then I would just say, we would like your permission to use the following recording. That includes your voice use, likeness, or image. You're not giving me permission to use your voice, face, or likeness in perpetuity for any way I want. I want to put my participants' minds at ease and say, all you're saying is that we can share this video with the public the way it is. And then I've asked them just to print it, to take a photo of it and send it back to me if they're not coming to campus, obviously, during COVID. They can use Adobe to do an e-signature if they want. The only line where you really need a signature is up here. This other printed stuff can just be typed in. But it's very easy for students these days to print something off or type or put a graphic of their signature right here to type in the rest of the information, hold up their phone, take a screenshot, and email it to you at your email address. That might be the easiest way for you to get releases. And again, just know that they might not have done this before. and be prepared for questions and give clear instructions on and how they can get you what you want to make it easy for them to submit their release forms. Because there's nothing less fun than waiting for release forms before you can release a video to, let's say, your whole department, or to show it at orientation or for some other purpose. And once you have the raw video footage, there's a lot that people can do with editing it down. I can blur out faces. I'd say I can learn how to blur out faces and names that shouldn't be in my video. Camtasia can do that very easily. Or you can send it to a video editor and have them edit out people who didn't sign the release form or who declined to sign the release form. So that's another option as well. So I'm open for all sorts of questions about recording and related items. Specific thoughts that are coming up for you guys around what you hope to record, plan to record.
I want to pre-record some PowerPoints so my students can watch them before class.
And that's, I think, one of the best uses of this, to prepare an introductory video. If you have new students who are joining in the fall and they've never met you in person and we're all in COVID, you know, do a quick 2-minute video introduction of yourself. You can get a real sense of a person by sharing your screen or just sharing your face in Zoom, hitting the record button, and then sharing that recording of yourself in Zoom or Sakai or wherever it makes sense. It's great for doing a presentation in advance because you can save your very precious face-to-face time for the questions and the comments and the discussion and the interactivity that come after a lecture, rather than having to present your lecture live for 30 minutes and then only have 30 minutes left to discuss with students. So I think that's great, Susan. And if you need any help with that, I recommend shooting a 1-minute version, ending your meeting, checking the video, making sure your sound was on, you didn't forget to share your screen, you're sitting in the middle, your lighting looks good. I have more than once done a 10-minute video of me doing a session only to play back the video and realize, oh, I was muted. Or, oh, I didn't actually share my screen that time and I have to do all 10 minutes again. So I promise you, a 1-minute practice will save you a lot of time in the future if you make sure it's working the way you intended, that you got your recording settings set up first, and that, oh, that came out with just my face talking and not my shared screen, or whatever. All right, I'll stop the recording, but I'll stay on for additional questions. And as always, when you want to try this yourself, and if you need someone to look at your settings with you or to do a 1-minute practice, email us at at@antioch.edu. We'll be happy to help you out.